been doing a little bit of work off camera, just trying to finish up the stuff that you guys have already seen once before. Like, for example, the bale arm, you already saw me make one. Well, the one on the other side is exactly the same, so I don't really see a lot of reason to film making this one as well. So now that the second arm is somewhat connected to the frame, not permanently, but just, you know, I've got it up here just to see how it all looks. I think I can now move on to the next step of this project, which is building the linkage that the hydraulics will use to open and close these arms. So I guess we may as well get started. That's what's going on today on Farmertylerranch. Pipe taps are on a taper, so sometimes it's tricky. There we go. And this one's especially tricky because I've only got like 3/16 of a wall to thread that in, and I don't want it to go past the wall because then it'll be rubbing on the pin. So what I will probably do, just to kind of give myself some insurance, is get it threaded in right where I want it, and then maybe tack weld it or put some JB weld on or something like that so that it doesn't back out, because I'm not going to really have a lot of thread on there for it to grab. I've got that right where I want it, so I'm just going to give it a tack weld so that the little extension there cannot move, but then I can still go ahead and tighten down the coupler as hard as I want without fear of the extension protruding into the collar, the shaft. What are we going to call it? The hinge, I guess. You guys know what I'm saying. Galvanized. The next pieces that I'm gonna need are just several different pieces of flat bar with holes drilled on either end. And when I bolt it all together, that's gonna make the linkage that's gonna allow the hydraulic cylinder to open and close these arms. Because you guys have seen me cut flat bar and drill holes in it plenty of times up to this point, I think what I'm gonna do is just make all of these pieces, and then when I get them all done, I'll show you how I'm putting them all together and how this is all gonna work. Well, hopefully it's starting to make a little bit more sense as to how all of this is going to work. I know a lot of people that have seen the first couple of videos, I think that they've been confused or haven't seen a design quite like this before. Some of the bale unrollers that I was looking at before I built this used 2 hydraulic rams on either side to control each arm independently, or some people would plumb them together. But what I didn't like about that design is that you got to buy 2 hydraulic rams, and by doing it this way with the linkage, we can get the same amount of work out of 1 ram, which greatly reduces the cost of this build. On the end of this linkage piece, I've got this extra hole here, and if you're wondering why that's there, The honest answer is that's the first place that I drilled the holes, and then I decided that maybe those were too far out, so I drilled some new ones in a little bit further, which I think is going to be better for 4-foot bales. But rather than cut that piece off and get rid of this extra hole, I thought I would just leave it there for now until I have a chance to use this thing. There may be some advantage to having the other hole, or if I ever wanted to pick up 5-foot wide bales, it might be good to have this. So for now, I'm gonna leave it, but after I use it for a while or see what it's capable of in this configuration, then I may end up cutting that off, or I may not. We'll just have to wait and see. So the last thing that I like to do tonight before I head in the house is kind of cycle the hydraulic ram and see how far apart these arms can get. Right now, they're at a perfect 90-degree angle in relation to the frame, and you can see that we've got a little bit left on the ram, so it can pinch a little bit tighter, but this is a 10-inch travel ram, so it can actually get a lot wider too. So we'll take these plugs out. I'm still going to cut these arms off a little bit. They're a lot longer than they need to be, but I think they're going to be like right around here where I've got the tape. And with that ram completely extended and the arms at about 4 foot of length, this spread on the arms is 10 feet. So that is going to be more than enough. In other words, these extension holes are completely unnecessary. I could pick up an 8-foot wide bale if such a thing existed. Actually, that kind of makes me wonder if I could pick up 2 4-footers if they were right next to each other. That's something we'll play around with later when when this is all finished and I can actually use it. So all the way open, we've got a 10-foot spread. Let's collapse this all the way and see how narrow it gets. All right, that puts us at 39 inches from outside to outside there. So with 39 inches between the ends of the arms and the ram almost completely collapsed. There's like 1/8 of an inch left that it could still travel. We'll jump ahead, it's the next day now, and I was out here working last night, as you guys saw, and made a lot of progress. This is really starting to come together, but I've been kind of looking at it this morning, making a list. And there's still quite a few things. So I guess we better start checking them off. And I think the first thing I want to do this morning is cap these ends. So the plan is to cover this and then have a little hole for the grease fitting to stick out of. The end caps turned out pretty good. I think the next thing that I want to do is cut these arms down to length. I've got to cap some ends, get some gussets in place, and just kind of do a bunch of little finalizing with the arms. And in order to do that, I've got to take all the linkage off, and I'm actually going to go ahead and remove the arms from the frame to get them finished up. Those are tight. Come on, you're right there. There we go. Ooh, heavy. Next, I've got to do some welding down here on the end. I've got to weld in this little gusset plate and then finish the weld at the end of this beam and on the top as well. So what I'm concerned about is that doing all the welding here is going to make these tabs close a little bit. So what I'm going to do to hopefully avoid that is to stick a 4.5-inch spacer in here to hold these apart while I'm welding, and we'll let this all cool before I end up taking this plate out, and then hopefully that will at least minimize the distortion. Okay, so that'll hold those tabs in the right spot, and hopefully I can do this. I got this arm all welded up, I got that arm welded up. Everything is incredibly hot, way too hot to do anything with except just let it sit there and cool down. So while I'm doing that, I've got to drill some holes in these pins, and this is a good time to get that done. I got both pins drilled now, and I think everything has cooled down enough to reassemble this for the, I don't know, 100th time. And that's what I'm gonna do now. I feel like I made a lot of good progress in this video. We went from basically a 3-point frame to now, I mean, you can really see what this is gonna look like. In fact, with everything that you see here, this is very close to being finished. There's a few little, you know, last minute final touches, as there always is. But the next big thing that's gonna happen, aside from like painting and stuff like that, is plumbing the hydraulics, but maybe more than that, is installing the actual rollers here on the end of the arms. But as it turns out, I've got to wait for bearings to show up before I can do that, so I think we're gonna call this one here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys, and I hope I'll see you again on Farmer Tyler Ranch.